Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Cadet First Class Renee Anderson. It is my privilege to welcome you to the 30th Annual National Character and Leadership Symposium, and specifically the Class of 1993 keynote panel featuring the Air Force's 12 Outstanding Airmen of the Year for 2022. Please join me in recognizing our generous sponsor, the United States Air Force Academy, Class of 1993. It is now my pleasure to introduce today's moderator for the panel, our senior enlisted leader for the Center of Character and Leadership Development, Senior Master Sergeant Patrick Hunt. I will now introduce our panelists, the 12 Outstanding Airmen of the Year. These airmen were selected based on their superior leadership, job performance, and personal achievements. We are privileged to have 11 of these airmen with us here today. Senior Master Sergeant Megan Harper, Air Combat Command. Master Sergeant Cade Forrester, Air Force District of Washington. Master Sergeant Brandon Blake, Air Force Special Operations Command. Master Sergeant Brianne Kelleher, Air Force Reserve Command. Technical Sergeant Alexander Messenger, Air Education and Training Command. Technical Sergeant Jennifer Thomas, Air Force Materiel Command. Staff Sergeant Stephen Peters, Air Mobility Command. Senior Airman Demarion Davis, USAFE Africa. Senior Airman Monica Figueroa Santos, Air Force Global Strike Command. Senior Airman Christopher Tao, Air Force Materiel Command. Senior Airman Caden Soper, Pacific Air Forces. Senior Master Sergeant Hunt, can you please start the panel by explaining more about the 12 Outstanding Airmen of the Year program and follow with questions you have for the panel members?
Thank you, Cadet Anderson, for the great introduction. For those of you who don't know, the 12 OAY, these airmen represent our major commands, direct reporting units, field operating agencies, and headquarters Air Force. They've each competed with more than 400,000 airmen up to 5 different levels to get here. So you can tell the caliber of airmen it takes to be in this position. And it remains a great honor to be here with them today. They represent several Air Force specialties and truly embody the best our enlisted corps has to offer. As a 12 AOI, they are Air Force ambassadors. You have seen these great teammates back in September in your squadrons and in your classrooms. They have jumped from aircraft. I have no idea why anybody would want to jump from a perfectly good aircraft, but we're going to move on. And they also have completed the 10-meter. Yet again, I have no idea who would want to do that. As we all know, this year we're exploring how to reimagine leadership and inspire teamwork, which is rooted in our institutional outcome of leadership, teamwork, and organizational management. That being said, teamwork catches my eye. Master Sergeant Blake, being in special operations, how does that change your mindset of being on a team?
I think it's really kind of progressed the way I look at a team. Before I went through a pipeline and got onto teams, I had kind of a very broad outlook on what a team was until I went through assessment selection. And that's one really cool thing that we do is we're assessed. And when you're going through assessment selection, you get to learn about your team, and it's all about teamwork. If you don't work as a team, you're gonna fail. Within our teams, we're a 6-person team. And if one person on that team fails and you're not working together cohesively, you don't trust each other, ultimately the mission's not gonna get accomplished. You're gonna fail every task you do. So it's truly honed what teamwork is to me and really built and embodied team ethics and trust. It's all about trust when you're on a team.
I appreciate that. I really appreciate that. So you got some nice, good-looking badges on your uniform, special operations. Could you talk to us a little bit more, go in a little bit more detail about special operations and what that entails?
Yes, sir. So get cool uniforms. It's nice, but at the end of the day, it's not about the uniform. It's about the person under the uniform. And I think you look at the 5 soft truths, and one of those soft truths is quality over quantity. And the uniform doesn't make a special operations operator. It doesn't make you a better person. It ultimately is a person that's underneath that uniform. And when you take this uniform off, who are you? And within special operations, we care about the people. If you don't care about the people, the mission's not going to get accomplished, especially with the mission sets, the deployments. If you're not taking care of each other, regardless of what your uniform you're wearing, whether it's CRY, you got nice pockets, you can put your hands in them, it's cozy, but at the end of the day, it's all about the person that is under that uniform at the end of the day.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. To me, it sounds like a leader of character, living honorably, and talking about and trusting your people and learning from them as well. When we're talking about life-changing experiences, Chairman Davis, being a 12 OAY this year, what life-changing experiences have you had, and what can you share with our cadets here today?
Thank you for the question, Senior. And thank you to USAFA for having us. Being 12 OAY, this is unimaginable. It's a great honor to be able to hold that, and it's taught me to inspire others. Give back to the people the way that, the people have given to you, and share all the knowledge that you have, and empower the people around you, as well as it's okay to make mistakes. When you're leading people as a leader, you're going to make mistakes. Learn from those mistakes, and then also let everyone around you know you're going to make mistakes along the way, but as long as you pick up and keep moving, that's the best thing that you can do for yourself and others.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You said something that was very, very good, empowering. That's what we want to encourage our leaders to do and our teammates to do, is to be empowered. My next question is to Senior Airman Santos. Can you briefly describe a time where you had to step up confidently as an airman in a task that you wasn't so necessarily confident in?
Yes, sir. Thank you for the question. First, I'd like to say it's an honor to be here. Appreciate it. So I work in a nuclear command post, and my job works with missileers. To set the picture, we have junior and senior controllers, just like how missileers have commanders and deputy. And there was a time where I was in Airman First Class, I was a junior controller, and my senior controller had left the cab. And I was doing a nuclear readiness ops test. The missileer had to pass values to me, and these values come from the sorties. And I have the other half of the values, and I have to make sure we have an authentication. When the missileer was passing the values to me, there came a time where one of the values didn't match. And I had to stop him and say, hey, we don't have a match. And he told me, don't worry about it, it's okay. So we continued on with the values, and it's in my position to say that, okay, we completed the test. But I knew that we didn't have a correct value, and that rarely happens. So my course of action was to pull in another missileer who does the plans and codes portion of this test. And at the time, the missileer was challenging me, saying, the test is fine, don't worry about it. But in my mind, I knew it wasn't, and my senior controller wasn't present. So I took it upon myself and kind of challenged the missileer and said, hey, sir, this is not protocol. So I'm going to do my course of action and what I have to do. And granted, I was an A1C, so I was very nerve-wracking to say this to an officer. So I did what I had to do. We pulled in a third authenticator, and that missileer said, the airman is correct. We don't have a correct value. But we were able to fix the issue. But it took a lot of courage for me to tell an officer, hey, sir, this wasn't done right. I need to fix it.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That is the true meaning of empowering. Master Sergeant Forrester, Senior Master Sergeant Select, by the way. Being an SEL, how difficult is it to empower your folks and trust that they will do the right thing?
It's hard. I'll tell you what, it's one of the hardest things you could do as a leader. From the start, you're taught to be hard charging, get after the mission. accomplish one objective and move to the next. But at some point, you got to learn when to flip that switch. And instead of leading from the front, you lead from the rear. You need to learn the ability to open up doors and push your folks through those doors and be behind them as the best follower you can be. This is something that I struggle with on a daily basis. I'm extremely task-oriented. And to help me with this, I've developed the ability to put roadblocks in my way. When given a task, the first thing that comes to mind is, how can I solve this? Who are my stakeholders I need to work with? But I've added a third layer to it of, who can I push to do this? Because ultimately, as leaders, one of our biggest responsibility is developing the future. And it's something we need to take wholeheartedly. If you are the best, that's you. What happened when you leave? We need to develop the future generation to become and replace us and be better than us. Another thing that helps me with this, especially since I struggle with it, I empower my team. Not only my peers, but especially my subordinates. They are my wingman who watch out for this. If they notice I'm going down that path and overstepping and not giving them opportunity, we have that trust in our feedback sessions where they pull me back like, hey, sir, you're doing it again. Give us opportunity to lead. We have to develop that trust with each other and especially develop that trust with our subordinates to where we have those open conversations where we look after each other as wingman.
You spoke about developing, and that is our goal and our mission here at USAFA, is to develop leaders of character. Sergeant Harper, Senior Master Sergeant Harper, Chief Select Harper.
Chief.
What advice would you offer our cadets to ensure that they maintain a healthy balance between their relationships and their careers?
I think that's an awesome question. And I really wish that I had someone tell me some advice when I first came in. So full transparency, I was not always good at maintaining a healthy balance between mission and relationships. If the recruiter had offered me a 20-year service commitment from day one, I would have taken it and drive forward. However, with that came some sacrifices to some personal relationships because I didn't have that balance. Some of those sacrifices led to a divorce, some relationships that were tarnished. And what I've learned is that you have to have emotional check-ins. With the loved ones, with your friends, whether or not it's a romantic relationship, but just with all relationships, do a check-in and say, hey, how do you feel? Am I giving you enough of my time? Is there something that you need from me? How can I help you? What are some things that you're going through? And have those emotional check-ins. And then, with that obviously comes proactive listening. We can be dialed in and be trying to execute something. And as airmen up to our junior NCOs and senior leaders, the responsibility is never going to end. The work is always going to be there. And it's hard for us to disconnect. And so proactive listening is when you need to disconnect and you need to sit down and have that conversation eye to eye and listen to what your loved ones and those that truly need you at that time are asking from you. And then ultimately, setting healthy boundaries is what I've learned has been extremely important. Not allowing someone's number one problem to become my number one problem when I need to give my energy to someone else. And then also, even in our relationships with our spouses, our partners, our children, establishing the boundaries to say, hey, like, I'm gonna take care of that. We're gonna do this, but I also need to be able to concentrate on what my mission is right now. And then I promise you, I'm gonna give you that time, and for them to understand that, because you ultimately, with service comes an amazing sacrifice, but it absolutely should not sacrifice your relationships that you need when we have to take off this uniform. We have to have people to go back to, and we have to have that support system to return to.
That is a great leadership perspective, having human intelligence and a healthy balance with relationships. Airman, you have something to add?
Yes, Senior. I'd just like to add, because like Chief Harper is talking about, she's talking about relationships as far as balance between life and the Air Force. I think that when we talk about relationship balance too, we fail to talk about as a team, right? The relationships that we have within our organizations, the relationships we have within our work center. I've been very fortunate since I was a young man and a young child at 7 years old to be on a lot of sports teams. I've been the opportunities, whether it be football, wrestling, even now I'm going into my 7th season of coaching football. And the thing that I think I learned most as far as relationships goes within an organization, within a team, is that you have to be able to love each other. Like Master Sergeant Blake said, it's about trust, right? It's about trust when we go in your 6-man man teams. It doesn't matter how many you have. If I can't love you, if I don't trust you, if I can't say that at the end of the day we're more than that, then it's hard for me. That's what was instilled into me, is make sure you love your teammates. That's rule number one, is love your teammates. And the other thing is, you're not going to like everybody, right? You're going to go in and you're going to be in people that you may not necessarily have the same interest in. That happens a lot, especially whether it be in the workplace, in the classroom, on a team. You're not going to like everybody. But the most important thing is you do have to understand you got to respect everybody, right? Like, I may not like you, we may not have the same values, we may not have the same beliefs, but I respect for you for who you are and because we're on this team, and I still love you for that.
Thank you very much. That is a great, outstanding perspective on leadership that you can learn on a football field, and you can tie it into an organization, any sports team. That is a great, great leadership advice. Master Sergeant Kelleher, do you believe there's a difference between voicing your leadership versus putting it into action?
Absolutely. This is loud. All the cadets can understand, and anybody in the military can understand. From the beginning of your career, all you do is talk about leadership, leadership, leadership. You have professional development, you have brown bags. It's almost the point where, as A1C, Kelleher just wanted to learn her job. We just kept hitting on leadership. I'm like, why? Why is this happening? I just want to learn how to work on missiles, right? I'm a linguist now, for a good reason. Anyway, moving on. But what you're doing that whole time is you're going through thought experiments, deciding what kind of leader you want to become, building that muscle memory so that when you're put into a leadership position, you can act on it appropriately in a way that you've already thought through. Maybe you've already overcome hurdles so that when you have that problem airman, or you come into something, you can act in a way you've already thought through the ways that you can fail as a leader, right? So for me, leadership, my philosophy on leadership is leadership through love. Like, you have to love your airmen. And I don't mean in a mushy, romantic way where you let people walk all over you. The basis of that love, leadership through love, is honesty. You have to be able to be honest, and honesty without tact is cruelty, right? So you have to figure out how to be able to have these conversations and be honest, but be thoughtful and loving. And so moving on. That way, I've already lost my train of thought. I was so into that little quote. So moving on, anecdote-wise, everybody loves anecdotes and stories. Going back to the fall of Kabul, I deployed within 24 hours as a linguist to Task Force Holloman. We get there, it's absolute chaos. I knew it was going to be chaos. I was told it was going to be chaos. But what it was, we had this backbone, the skeleton, that had nothing to do with what we had infrastructure-wise. It was our military. We were able to step in. That muscle memory that comes from all those years and years of talking about leadership gets put into action, and you get to see it in a real firm way. You look around, and we had tent city for our military members, and for the 5,000, soon to be 7,000 Afghans that came through that camp during the fall of Kabul, we had initially 12 tents that could fit maybe 100 people total. So what everybody did was it was amazing to watch all the military just step in and create this scaffolding and then flesh this out, this whole organizational structure. We saw where we were needed, and we just stepped in. We're like, okay, my airmen need this. They're not getting lunches, something that simple, but there were no processes in place to do that. And everybody just started filling these gaps. So all of a sudden, you had this huge organization, and that's because of all of that leadership that have been instilled in us, right? And then you have all these Afghans that have just gone through an incredibly traumatic experience. They're in a foreign country. They don't speak the language. They've been separated from their family. They almost just died, and you're trying to help interact with them. And as linguists, this was our job. We wanted to be the hearts and minds. We wanted to get in there, and we wanted to help them, right? So the problem there is you have this tendency, if you were in one of the other organizations, because there's a multi-organizational operation, right? You want to tell them what they want to hear. You want to make them feel good. But you can't do that. You have to be honest, and you have to be able to do so in a way that you can be honest and be loving, right? I had 2 women that I was talking to, and they're just crying, and the State Department guy just walked away. He's like, can you just sit with them? I can't. I was like, all right. I don't even know what language they speak. So I'm speaking to them in Urdu, and this woman, come to find out that they'd been 2 women two Afghan women separated from their family. Their family was in Wisconsin, they were there. And they're like, how do we get to them? I'm like, what I want to tell them is, it's going to be okay. You're here, you're safe, it's going to be fine. Don't worry about it, we'll get you to your family. But that's not the answer, that's not the truth. And I have to try to figure out and walk that line between being honest and being like, I don't know if we can get you there, but I'm going to do my best. I'm going to do my best to get you an answer, right? That's the answer that we all should say. I don't know, but I'll find out. And but do so in a way that's loving and thoughtful of their position. So, and we had to do that at every level. I'd have organizational talks and start telling people no because they were using and abusing my linguists. That was fun. And but really, the core of this, the end of this, is just to say, it doesn't matter what you say about your leadership philosophy. It's how you put it into action. You can talk all day about leadership, you're going to talk about your entire careers, but when you're given, hopefully you take that time that you're talking about it so that when you have the opportunity to put it into action, you've already built that muscle memory. So, yeah.
Thank you very much. In your story, you stated that you deployed within 24 hours. Sergeant Messenger, if you have a team that has a task that seems not feasible at all, how do you communicate with them to obtain buy-in with your teammates so you can complete a task?
Absolutely. So thank you for that question. So we hear this term buy-in all the time, right? You know, like, hey, we're bought into this, he's bought into that, she's bought into this. It's what does that mean? And really, to start this off, I just want to kind of define what buy-in is. And really what it is the act to actively support something, right? And actually participate and be a part of. In our case, that something is the mission. And so how do we actively get our students or our troops or our, whoever's following us to buy into that mission and buy into you as a leader? And to kind of transition to get that buy-in, I want to cover a concept that we call an emotional bank account. And some of you may have heard this concept before, but what an emotional bank account is it's a metaphor on how to build trust within an individual. And so every single one of us, as a leader, with all your subordinates, you have an emotional bank account with each one. And before you can take anything from that bank account, you have to put something into it. So I can't sit there and criticize my airman and tell him to be better or do this without at first just establishing something so he kind of knows me and I have some type of rapport with him. And to kind of build upon this and provide like a story or an example. So when I first got to Lackland Air Force Base, or JBSA Lackland, I was put on a flight with about 50 other airmen. So there were about 5 to 6 staff sergeants on flight, and I think I had about 4 or 5 troops. And with each and every single one of those troops, you have to do is sit down and do some type of feedback, right? And it's this mandatory thing that we're supposed to do, and yeah, you can just check the box and say, hey, we did it, but you as a supervisor can take that a step further. And so that's what I decided to do and kind of build out those 5, 15, 25-meter targets for goals that my subordinates had. And it didn't have to be professional, it could have been personal as well. And you can do it for either one, it doesn't matter because it still works. So I did this and I said, hey, what are your goals? Like, I don't want to hear about your professional right now. What do you want to do as a person? And think down the line of what kind of certification I want to have or what I want to do when, maybe the military, if I find out the military is not for me. And so he told me he wanted to be a registered nurse, right? I'm a cop. What do I know about being a registered nurse? Absolutely nothing, right? So I have to go in and do my own research. Luckily, my wife was trying to apply for the same program, so I was able to talk to her about it and say, what steps did you have to take? Where did you have to go with this? And I kind of gave him some of that material and said, hey, these are the next steps. These are how you build your targets out. Let's get after it. And immediately he sees that I'm caring about what he wants to do and it has nothing to do with me. And so boom, right there, I have some type of emotional bank account equity that if, maybe I mess up as a leader and I kind of lose some type of trust, he still trusts me because I have built that rapport with him and I have that money in that bank account that I can kind of pull from, right? And we don't always want to pull from it. Pulling from it is not good because that's saying, hey, you're losing trust with that member. But again, you have to build with it. And so I had another airman that luckily I had built some emotional bank account equity into him. And me being a young staff sergeant at the time, I decided to yell at him in front of the whole flight. Wasn't a good idea, right? But I learned that. And as you can tell, I had to take some of that emotional bank account or take some equity from that emotional bank account. But really the whole, kind of to sum this all up is you have to build trust. It's going exactly back to Master Sergeant Blake said, and Senior Airman Soper, and it's all interconnected. It's this trust, this connectedness, this building this rapport. Like, it is all so important with leadership, because you have to be able to do this if you want people to follow you into wherever we may go and receive that buy-in for whatever mission you may be doing.
Thank you very much. The common theme here is, did you have something to
Yeah,
add?
yes, sir. Sorry. I just wanted to talk about that from a junior enlisted standpoint and being maintenance, and a lot of the cadets and then soon to be young LTs in the room. There's a lot of great junior enlisted individuals up here too. Basically, I think that we fail to understand is, even though we're so young and maybe we think we're on the bottom of the totem pole, how big of an impact we can have with buy-in, right? Because even me as a junior enlisted, my voice and the way I act and the way I come into work can be so powerful. The way, whether it be in the classroom or whether it be out when you get out and you become an LT, what you do, it really creating this sense of, I want to come and work for him, or I love showing up to work with this guy. Because as junior enlisted airmen, we come in all the time and people are going to work and they're going to be like, I don't really believe in the Air Force quite yet. And I'm sure there's probably a lot of people, if you go and talk out there enlisted, it took until they extended, or it took until they signed that second contract till they said, yes, the Air Force, I am 100% bleed blue. But you're going to show up and you're going to be in charge of people who don't necessarily see that right off the bat. And for me to come in and have people, they believe in me, right? It's not necessarily that they believe in the Air Force, they believe in aircraft maintenance, but they believe that I enjoy coming to work every single day with Senior Airman Soper, or I enjoy coming to work with Senior Airman Tao. I enjoy coming in with these people, and no matter what happens, we're going to get through the day, right? Maintenance is a tough career field. Security forces are tough career fields. And we're going to make it through the day because I believe in that person. And that's ultimately how you can get buy-in from people who may not necessarily believe in the overall organization, but they believe you as an individual underneath the uniform, like Sergeant Blake said.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. There's a common theme here on the panel is honesty, love, and trust. And that really ties into our leader of character framework, own, engage, and practice. We have a graduating class in the next 4 months. Sergeant Peters, brand new Staff Sergeant Peters, what do you think the new lieutenants need to know about leading airmen today?
First, it's a pleasure being here. I'm super nervous being up here in front of everybody, but hopefully what I have to say resonates with someone. If I'm giving advice to new LTs that's coming into the Air Force, I would say your biggest priority should be integration. So remember, you're coming into a unit that's already established. So you have to kind of, like Sergeant Messenger's talking about, it's that buy-in factor. So in order to do that, you're gonna have to integrate, and you're gonna have to get to know people that don't know you. So you're gonna have to kind of force it a little bit, but it gets easier over time. So get to know the people that you work with, get to know their weaknesses, get to know their strengths, and get to know what their passions are outside of work. Kind of share those memories that you have from USAFA, because you might inspire some of the younger airmen that are in your units. By doing so, you're gonna kind of improve your unit morale, your unit cohesion, and that allows you guys to perform better as a team. So today, I had the pleasure of sitting in on retired U.S. Navy SEAL Lieutenant Jason Redmond, and I was able to listen to him speak. And my Red Bull was not cutting it this morning, so he kind of woke me up with what he was talking about. And a big thing that I took away from it was that we all have a choice. And in that choice, it comes, the decisions behind that choice will alter whether your unit performs or reverts backwards. So for the graduating class, I challenge you guys to choose to be the change that you guys want to see. Choose to be the leader and the mentor that you guys admire currently. Choose to be that listening ear for people, and also have that open door to allow people that outlet and to gain that trust from you. And just choose to be present. And remember that human factor that all of us have. So we're humans first, and we're airmen second. So kind of take care of each other, and by doing that, people are gonna take care of you in return. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Thank you very much. Does anyone, sorry, Messenger, go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. So with what Sergeant Peters said, I kind of just want to add on to another concept that might help you out for this graduating class that's coming up. And what do I want to see in a young lieutenant when they get to my unit? And as I want to see them continue to be a student all the way throughout. And so I always say to my people is always be a student. And so, yeah, you're graduating, an elite institution, and you're going to go to your tech school, and you're most likely going to graduate that. But you're still going to be a student once you get to your first location, your first operational duty station. And you lose so much buy-in if you just sit there and assume that you know everything. And I'm not saying that anyone in this crowd is going to do that. But what I am saying is I want to see some humility and be humble enough to, accept people that they have other strengths, and it might be in an area where you're not as strong. And have that humility to incorporate them into whatever talks or whatever challenge that you're facing, and maximize those capabilities to, just increase mission effectiveness. And so really by always be a student, I'm just asking you to be humble. I'm asking you to be vulnerable and mention, hey, I don't know something, because I'll be the first to tell you when I don't know something, right? Like, I get it, I'm security forces, like there's not a whole lot I know, but I'll tell you what, I'll let you know if I don't. But again, always be a student, have the humility, be vulnerable with your people, and man, you're gonna be a great lieutenant if you have that kind of inspiration, that kind of buy-in.
I thank you for that thought. Go ahead.
So I'd like to add from a junior enlisted perspective. So I work with officers all the time. We work with the missileers. And one thing that I would like to share is to get an understanding of what the junior enlisted actually do. Either they have no rank, 1 stripe, 2 stripes, 3 stripes, that doesn't define them. So every time we get new missileers, they have to learn what we do in order to better help how we run the mission. And it really is the enlisted and mostly the junior enlisted who actually fuel the mission, who run the mission. We're hands-on. So it's really great that when we get new officers coming into the unit, that they actually want to know what we do. We're not invisible. And I think that's very caring that officers do that. So I think in order to be new in your unit, I think it's best to really get to know your airmen, really get to know it from the lowest ranks.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to double back on Sergeant Messenger's perspective when you talk about always be a student. Leadership is a journey. Is there a matrix out there that's going to teach you how to be a better leader? If you do this 5 times, you're going to be a great leader. But it's a journey. You're supposed to try to learn every single day. When you wake up, you want to be better than you were yesterday. It's an endless mountaintop. You're always growing. You always growing daily. So thank you, everyone, for your perspective.
Senior Master Sergeant Hunt, can you please start Senior Master Sergeant Hunt and panelists, at this time, I would like to open the floor for questions. Attendees may ask questions at the microphones positioned in the audience.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Richie Cobway from Detachment 675 at the University of Oklahoma, and I am the General Military Course Advisor. I'm a AS 500, and I'm trying to help my class really bond and get together. So my question is, how can you, as a leader, bring people closer together from different backgrounds?
I can try. So I will use us as an example. So coming together, 12 different people, 12 different match comms, 12 different jobs, different bases. So it kind of helped us to find that common footing. So you have to provide the place, that platform, so that they can get together and kind of pick each other's brains about what do you like to do, or what passions do you have, and even if they're talking about just their job, I've learned and gained so much respect for what each individual does on this panel based on just talking to them and being interested in them as a person. So I they have to kind of think of each other as, again, people. I said that earlier, that human aspect, and try to kind of cater to that, cater to what you like to do as an individual, and I think that'll kind of carry you guys a long way.
Absolutely. Add to that, Sergeant Peters. He used the word passion, right? Anybody who wants to go to ROTC and go be at Oklahoma, they're there because they're passionate about something. You got to find that passion, right? How do I get them to develop that passion, and how do I get them to develop that together? So utilize that because they want to be there because of the passion. So let that fuel their cohesion and let that fuel that team.
I'd like to add one more thing. I'd like to add one more thing to that. Going off what Saul Massinger mentioned, always be a student. I learned something from him over the past few days. He mentioned that attitude is contagious. So if you want to bring people together, start by having the right attitude. Start by having the right attitude by be welcoming. Make them want to come and present stuff to you. Make that good culture in the environment. Culture is hard to build. It takes time, but it starts with one action, right? So make that welcoming environment, and to start with you with having that contagious attitude that I learned from Saul Massinger.
Free food, that's it.
That works too.
We good for the next one?
Go ahead, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is John Petrie. I'm from Texas A&M. I'm a junior cadet. And as such high-achieving airmen as yourselves, a lot of the times it can be go, 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 got to get the mission done. How do you manage not only burnout for yourselves, but for your peers, for your subordinates, managing how do you keep accomplishing the mission without using everything in the tank?
Thank you for that question. That's a great question. Yes, a lot of us are fast burners, and in my squadron, I definitely had a lot of people that noticed, like, hey, Davis, you really got to slow down. Like, are you taking the time for yourself? Make sure you have that outlet. At the end of the day, have that ritual. When you come home, if you want to read a book or do schoolwork for an hour, take that time for yourself because nobody's going to take that time for you. And for your peers as well. Know your people. That goes back to having that trustful relationship, that bank account. Make sure that you pay attention to your people. If you have a troop that comes in every day and say they have a monster in the hand every day, or every day they come in, they tell a joke or a quote of the day, and you notice them and they just seem off. Take that time. Hey, what's going on? Are you okay? Is there something that's going on in your life? And that can really help people. And then that gives you that outlet to where you can sit down and say, all right, well, you're doing this, this, and this. Maybe you should, take 2 of these away. Try doing this. Take this time for yourself, because without you being the prime performer that you are, everyone else is going to fail at the end of the day. And it's important that everybody is at their peak capacity, not just for the mission, but for you as a person and just for the community that you're around. Great question. Thank you for that.
So to speak on knowing your folks and understanding what exactly they have going on, one of the biggest piece of advice that I've learned over the course of my career is absolutely never forget where you come from. As soon as you forget what it's like to be that airman basic, airman all the way to airman first class, and some of the tasks that we leverage on them, you've absolutely lost your capability to lead because you can't relate to what they have going on. And what we end up doing as leaders is we tend to pick the one person that we know is going to get the job done, and we smoke them out. And then we're like, why doesn't airman whomever want to stay in anymore? And it's because we forgot what it was like to be that airman, to be relied upon for so many things. And then Sergeant Messinger spoke about feedback. So feedback is so vitally important. And when you're having that feedback session, ask them, hey, what do you need from me? What are some things, is your tank being refueled? Or do we need to redo some of this work? Or do you just simply need time? And feedback doesn't have to be with the cyclic of feedback. You don't need to be relied on that. Quite honestly, for all of the good leaders that I've had, feedback has been constant almost every day, almost every week, and having those check-ins and really saying, hey, I understand you got a lot going on. Is there anything that I can do to lighten your load? And always remain in the trenches with our airmen so that you understand exactly what they have going on. And then from a personal standpoint, I think Airman Davis really, really killed it. You got to detach. It's called an inbox so that there's stuff in it. Shut the computer, take care of yourself. Self-care is not selfish.
Hello, so my name is C4C Skylar Henry from Cadet Squadron 15, and my question for any panelist is, what is the most challenging experience you faced in your life, and how has that changed or defined you as a person or a leader?
I can answer on this one. The most challenging experience I've had in my career, in my life, were probably high expectations, and I feel like a lot of cadets can vibe with this because you guys are supposed to be the best of the best. There's no such thing as failing, right? In my life, my parents are actually war refugees from the Vietnam War, and they came here with nothing in the back. So when I was growing up, they would always tell me, like, Chris, you are the future of our family. You have to save us. You have to become this doctor, this lawyer, this really high statured person. There's no room for failure. And if I failed at something, I felt like my family was put at a detrimental state because I could not succeed. And that crushed me in my path of life. And then when I joined the military, it was a little bit the opposite, where I would crush a lot of things, and I would complete projects and lead teams that were 2-3 ranks above my own. And they'd be like, "Hey, nice job. You got it because you're Asian, right? Or you got it because of that." And it wasn't because of my hard work ethic. And so what I would say, that was the challenging part, just no appreciation, and how I overcame that, which is a change of mindset of just forgetting everyone's expectations and living your own expectations, setting your own and doing it in your own path, in your own way. And when I set my own expectations and did it my own way, I kind of blew everybody else's expectations away. And that's when people started recognizing me as, hey, you know, that really smart Asian guy in comm. No, it's like, actually, Airman Tao is super hardworking, dedicated, and he really cares about the mission and about the people. And I would say that I failed a lot striving to that. And I would say a quote I've always kind of just kept in my head is always, it's not okay to fail, but it's okay to fail in stride of greatness, and it is not okay to succeed within mediocrity.
Thanks, sir.
I'm Cadet Third Class, Sadatarni from Cadet Squadron 11. So we talk about leadership constantly in the military, as you said. However, there is a prevalence of toxic leadership in the military a lot. So knowing that, when you do face toxic leadership, how do you continue to have the same confidence, the same internal peace, and the same, the same drive to do what you need to do, even when there are toxic leaders around you saying, well, like you said, you're not that smart, but you got it, good job this one time.
I'll speak on that. I really think it does come down to, if we're talking about a supervisor and a leader or someone in the work center, I'm not a big isolationist. I'm never going to isolate somebody out. But it is really rallying around the people that you can trust and the people you can lean on in that environment. Because I don't think, if it's in a toxic environment, there's sometimes where you as an individual need to understand when you need to get out, right? Because I think that's extremely important, is sometimes we feel stuck. We feel stuck in an environment. But if it's a person, right, if we can continue to create a positive environment from that negative, that's really what drives passion, that's really what's going to drive us as a team. Because I've been on so many successful teams and I've been on so many unsuccessful teams. And I've learned the real difference between the two is that the successful teams realize who the cancer in the team is and are able to cut out the cancer, right? I think that ultimately what comes down, like I said, you can't be an isolationist, but at some point in your life and at some point in your career, it comes to a point where you have to put your teammates and the team before that person, before that toxic environment. And so I think a lot of it has to come to is rallying around those individuals that you can trust and control the controllables, right? And control the things that are inside of your life and inside your team's control and the organization.
Yeah, so to answer that question I'm trying to not be like as personal as possible, right? But I hate the term toxic leadership. I hate it. And the reason I hate it is because I believe NCOs drive the culture of a unit, 100%. And it's just, I feel the word toxic leadership to me is, I'm not gonna take that victim mindset of this individual is going to pretty much persuade my way of thinking and the Air Force is out to get me. And yeah, I don't like his leadership style. But at the end of the day, I can control what I can control. And if I want to be a part of the Air Force, I want to be a part of the Air Force. And if I want my team to be effective, I can make my team effective. And it's really just you relying on your NCOs and your NCO Corps, your senior NCO Corps, to get that done and to build that culture. Because at the end of the day, culture is going to weed out toxic leadership. And if you have a strong culture and you have the grit to kind of push through that, then I 100% believe like that is how you overcome toxic leadership, is just build something strong, build something that's lasting. And again, the unit's going to carry on and the mission's going to get done. And eventually your airmen are going to be happy because they have those senior NCOs and those NCOs that they can truly rely on.
I haven't spoken yet, so I'm going to try to answer this a little bit, but it's going to be a short answer. But really for this one, use it as a learning opportunity, right? Basically learn from this toxic leadership that you're talking about, and basically don't copy what they're doing. So learn to do like, that's what I'm trying to say. Don't do what they do, and be the positive light for everybody else. So while everybody else is getting mad because their leadership is toxic, well, you can change that culture. I don't know if you guys saw that video of that little pink ball that he was the only one that came into the office with everybody else had black colors, but she changed the culture and now everybody else is wearing different uniforms. So that was my short answer.
I couldn't let this question go by. I'm not trying to take away from the 12 OAY, but I'm going to double back on what they said. But your attitude determines your altitude. When you have an attitude going into work, doing an outstanding job, and you can't control the things that's going on around you, challenge yourself to react differently on the things you cannot change. That's exactly where your power comes from.
And so experiencing unsuccessful teams and successful teams, and knowing like the leadership that came with that, what do you look for in a first lieutenant? Like, what do you look for when a new lieutenant comes into your flight and, they set a good culture?
I had she asked for what you look for in an LT when they come in. I had actually a great young maintenance officer, a great young LT at my first squadron, and I think what he really came in and did was he was a learner. He learned. We had a great senior, we had a great chief, and he learned a lot. But he came in so enthusiastic. He really loved being in maintenance. I don't know whether it was his number one choice or the number one thing he wanted to do, but he came in and I felt like I really, really believed in him as a leader and what we were doing. Because I remember we went to Korea together, and that was the first time I've ever met him. And I could tell immediately right off the bat he really enjoyed being here, and it made everybody else really want to enjoy being there. And I think that's what, kind of what Senior Hunt was saying. And like, we were talking about being the light, right? Being the light of the organization, being the light of it, not necessarily focusing on so much on the negative, but focusing on the positives. That's really what he did as a young LT, is he did everything in his power, because he didn't know so much yet, but he kept learning, and he did everything in his power to be the light. I mean, he went even from, like when we talk about the light, there was a huge difference between our unit and our sister unit. And it was actually like the infrastructure, like the lighting in our unit was so much brighter compared to our sister unit. And you could actually tell in the room that we cared about being there more. We were more passionate. We were more enthusiastic, just as something as physical that. And he actually changed that. Like he recognized as a young LT that he had to come in and be enthusiastic about where he was at. And that's the number one thing I think that I could look for in a young leader, is just be enthusiastic about what you're doing.
If I could just quickly add to that. So as junior enlisted, when we come out of tech school and we get to our first assignment and we're happy and ready, our whole job is to learn. Ask questions. And when you're done asking questions, ask a couple more questions, because the more questions you have, the more you're going to learn. And having that attitude, like several of the other panel members have said, just having that good attitude and wanting to learn and knowing that you're not going to know everything right off the bat. And getting to a new unit, there's so much to learn, and you, at least for me personally, every unit that I've been to, I'm ready to go. Like day one, like I just kind of pick up where I left off, and it kind of sucks to have to wait and learn things, and it takes a while to get your groove. But just have that mentality that you want to learn as much as you can, and you're going to make mistakes just like everybody else, and make sure that you have that positive mentor as well. Make sure if you feel like you're not learning the amount of information that you need to learn, step up. Say, I feel like I haven't learned enough of this, or I feel like you're not touching on this. Is there any way we can go more in depth, or elaborate on this? So don't be afraid to use your voice when you get there, essentially.
We have time for one more question.
Good afternoon, panelists. Thank you. My name is Cadet Rotter from Air Force RDC Detachment 510 UNM. Initially, my question was also about toxic leadership, but we've covered that topic. So what I'd also like to ask now is how has your leadership through love mantra helped you, or not helped you, but been exemplified by officers in your careers that you'd like to share?
I got one here. Just from working with pilots every single day, right? So I think one thing that was unique for me as a young maintenance who's junior enlisted is I see a lot of different pilots and a lot of different individuals from a bunch of different schools. And they all, I work with fighter pilots. And I think one thing that they showed, like we talk about love, is that they cared about me. They got to know me as a maintainer. They may only see me for 30 minutes in their day. It may be 15 minutes for launch, and it may be 15 minutes for land. But the other thing that they do is if there's a problem with their aircraft, they're comfortable and they trust me to sit there and to work through that with them, right? They're willing to understand that me as the junior enlisted, I am the expert in my career field, and they're going to sit there and listen to me. Or if Airman Soper has a question afterwards and I have to go back up to ops and completely go out of my way to speak with them, they show me that love and respect by continuing to talk to me. And then even outside of that, when we go somewhere, when we TDY, we deploy, I feel like there's so much camaraderie and there's so much actual respect for one another and what we do, regardless of if the level is so different, right? Because there's a huge difference between what an operational fighter pilot's going to do every day and then what I'm going to do every single day as an avionics maintainer. So I feel like that is the most example I've seen in my entire career from an ops and maintenance perspective.
I'd like to add on to that real quickly. They don't like my mic. What I'd like to add to that. There we go. What I'd like to add to that is, as officers, you're expected to set the tone. You're expected to set the expectation. So it all starts with you. Set the expectation and the tone for what you want others to do, and hold them to that expectation and make sure it's carried on. I guarantee you, once you set that and let it be known, everyone within your chain will follow through and make sure you have a great culture.
Okay, so this is, currently, I know they're not watching, so I'm not sucking up, I promise. My current leadership is the best example of loving leadership. I work at group staff and I work for 206s, and they check in with me in a way. They have conversations. They know everything about everybody. They know what's going on in everyone's lives, and they check in with me, and they just genuinely show their love and their appreciation for their airmen by just stopping by and talking to them. For example, I've had a lot going on, right? My husband's leadership, I can also say, I go to them and I ask them questions. I ask for mentorship from them as well, because they know what's going on with me, even though I'm not even in their chain of command. I'm a spouse, right? So, for example, the other day, I have a lot on my plate right now at work, with the panel, with OAY, with my civilian job, because I'm a reservist, and my husband's retiring, just all this stuff. And my commander called me while I was at home, and he's like, hey, I want to know what's going on with A, B, and C. And he's like, I just want to check in with your mental health, because I'm worried that you have so much on your plate that you may start spinning. What can I take from you? And that in and of itself was the best example of loving leadership. I can't make up a better one. And that took me from a 10 on stress and took me down to a 5, because I knew I had that back, these people supporting me. I knew they had my back. I knew they genuinely cared about me, my mental health, my relationships, and my job performance. So that is my best example I can give you.
So I'll make that, I'm allowed to. I'll make this really, really quick. So absolutely love commander's involvement, but one of the things that I would suggest is make sure that your involvement is authentic and it doesn't lie on that micromanaging. Trust the leaders that's at your level to lead, and understand that they are completely capable. We've talked about empowerment. When you ask those questions, ask it from the right place in your heart, because you absolutely care about the member, and not because you don't trust that they're able to handle the process, because that can get very blurry and you can get falsely accused of micromanaging when you're simply just trying to care. So delivery is absolutely the most important part of loving leadership, and it coming from the right spot.
Senior Master Sergeant Hunt and Outstanding Airmen, thank you so much for sharing your valued experience and perspectives with us. You have contributed to how we can reimagine leadership and inspire teamwork. On behalf of the United States Air Force Academy and our National Character and Leadership Symposium, please accept this token of our gratitude. The base of this gift is made from the marble from our terrazzo. This is significant to us because all cadets had to run the marble strips during their freshman year. We hope you will look on this and remember your NCLS experience fondly.